As we move through the chapters of the book of Acts, part of what we see is how the word of God continues to spread. And if you think of the image of just taking a rock and throwing a rock into a pond, how the ripples move out, that's what's happening in the book of Acts. Where the stone enters the pond is Jerusalem, and the ripples just continue to move out around the whole Mediterranean basin. Our passage for today comes from Acts chapter 6, and in those days the disciples were told they're increasing in numbers, and there's a problem. The Hellenists, that means people who are of Greek origin, are complaining that their widows are being neglected in the distribution of food. This is for people who think the church, any church, is a perfect place with no problems. Well, that doesn't have its basis in the New Testament, because the book of Acts talks about numerous problems in the church, and most of Paul's letters are written, at least in part, to address problems in local churches. So here's the problem. Problem is, people of Greek ethnicity feel like their widows are being neglected. The disciples have to figure it out. The 12 call together the whole community of the disciples. And that leads to the verses for the day, chapter 6, verse 3 and 4. Therefore, friends, select from among yourselves 7 men of good standing, full of the Spirit and of wisdom, whom we may appoint to this task, while we, for our part, will devote ourselves to prayer and serving the word. And this leads to the appointing of the first deacons. Now, what's interesting is the 7 deacons who are appointed are men who all have Greek names. This is really smart and savvy on the part of the 12, right? It's the Greek widows who are being neglected in the distribution of food, so they appoint 7 Greek men to make sure that they're taken care of. That was a smart decision. A couple other things I want to point out from these verses is, first of all, the 12, the apostles, make it clear. They say it's not right that we should neglect the word of God in order to wait on tables. And that's not to demean the importance of feeding the widows, but this is an early window into it's very important in a church that people serve in the areas where they're called and gifted. And the role of the apostles is to teach. It's to teach and to pray. And for the deacons, it's to take care of the individual needs of the members. That's why in our church, that's what our deacons are responsible for. That's why they oversee the deacons fund. That's why the nurses are with them. Our deacons help to take care of the needs of members of the church, just like in Acts chapter 6. And this is how the church, again, continues to function well and to grow. The disciples will focus on teaching and prayer and being grounded in the Spirit. And the people that they select to lead are in good standing in the community, full of the Spirit and full of wisdom. And those are 3 categories that we strive to aim for when we look for people to be lay leaders in our church. Folks who are good standing in our community, full of the Spirit and full of wisdom. I hope that you can find a way, even if you're at home, to serve and to help the church as it grows. And sometimes that can be just through ministries of prayer and supporting the staff, the ministry, the gospel of the church, praying for those who are sick and on a prayer list. We always can contribute, no matter how young or old we are.